Hello, I'm Dale Adams of Planning Ahead of Time, and I'm speaking today with Colin Finch, who is?
I'm a non-religious humanist funeral celebrant.
Okay. Would you like to explain a little bit about what that is for people who don't know?
What, non-religion or humanism?
A bit of,
I think it's easy. I mean, humanism and non-religion are probably one and the same, Dale. But uh, my viewpoint on it is that you don't have to be religious to be a good person. We should treat everyone equally with kindness and with empathy. But the funny thing is, a lot of religious people do exactly the opposite, don't they? So I think the humanist is it's a kind of a word, a weird word to use, I think, because it makes it sound like some kind of cult, but it isn't. We're just people who don't happen to believe in God, don't happen to believe in spirits or afterlife or anything like that. But we believe that while we're here, we should do the best we can for us and the people around us.
well, I do remember the first time you and I met was at a networking event in Warwick in person.
Yeah, I had that black eye for weeks, which wouldn't go away.
And we instantly started on a debate because my view is all about spirit, afterlife, talking to the dead, as I've worked in medium for over 25 years. However, I don't think we'll get that debate.
I've got a question for you, Dale. I've got a good question for you just before we start. This occurred to me earlier. What if you went to the moon, okay, and died on the moon, what would happen? Would your spirit come back to Earth?
Oh, probably, yeah. I'd definitely be drawn back. I'd want to be here near my family.
So it's going to take a while, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can travel very quickly when you're just energy.
Right, okay. Good answer. Well done.
Right, so that's obviously the non-religious humanist element. And what does celebrant do?
Celebrants basically celebrates a life or an event. We could be a wedding celebrant. We could be we call it a birth celebrant. There's other words because we don't like to use the word christening, obviously, because it has religious connotations. And I specialize in funerals. I don't actually like weddings. People ask me why don't you want to do weddings? I said, well, first, it's too easy and there's too long to prepare. You could have 6 months of emails going, phone calls going backwards and forwards. Whereas with a funeral, we usually get no more than 2 weeks. So the pressure's on.
Okay. And in that time, obviously, the family communicate with you because they want to have the ceremony somewhere other than in a religious.
Yeah, it won't be in a church.
Yeah. So often that's a crematorium, but you also do other places as well.
Yeah, it would be woodland burial grounds, places like that. And memorial services could be done in a pub, in a hall. We've done one in a nice village hall once. Sometimes we've had, particularly with COVID, I did quite a few memorial services after the event because people just couldn't get there. So we actually, I more or less did the same service, albeit not quite so somber, but in and obviously no coffin, but to give people a chance who couldn't make the first one because we were only limited to 12, to give them a chance to remember their lost friends or relatives.
Okay. Well, my mom died recently in August.
I know. I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And what we did is we actually wanted to have her cremated, but we had a church service in that regard. But what I was quite aware of is the time frames that you have when you're at a crematorium. We didn't at the church because there wasn't another service afterwards, so we had a bit more time. So my understanding is that you're quite limited and obviously varying services, various time frames. How does that actually work?
That's a very good question, Dale.
Oh, good.
That is a good question because I'm a little bit OCD on the timing. I like to see a copy of, if people are coming up to do readings, I want to see a copy. People said to me before, oh, it's not very long. And I will actually dry run the whole service through. So that means if we're doing a cremation service, I will start with the music, I'll play it and I'll be stopwatching it. I'll time the music right the way through. I'll time my bits. I will then time the bits being read by others and add a bit for them to walk up to the lectern and back, and perhaps any moments of grief they have. So I need to be fairly precise, because a lot of services will be coming in after a service, and there'll be a service to follow. And usually we only get 35 minutes of service time. They allocate 45, but that means that the mourners have 5 minutes to get to their chairs. Sometimes, obviously, if the coffin's being carried into the catafalque, that takes a while as well. You have to factor that in. And obviously people leaving. So 35 minutes. What you don't want to do is make it seem rushed. There's nothing there. I must be awful. And I've watched services where I thought he's rushing his words. He's mistimed it. He hasn't worked it out. And I know people who don't work it out like I do. And you're leaving yourself very exposed to actually lowering the quality of the service.
Yeah.
So I would always time it right through. Even if I've read a kind of a section before, I'd still read it out again, check my timings, check all the music timings, check the reading timings. It has to be precise. It has to be.
Incredible, because I just wouldn't have thought about it like that at all.
Yeah.
We didn't think anything of timings when we were doing it. None. But then the time that we were at the crematorium was only really quite short, because it was a committal. You'd
already had the service, hadn't you, so to speak?
Yeah, well, we went back for that. So we actually did the committal first. So went to the crematorium. My mum was carried in by family.
Yeah.
And there was obviously the vicar did the sort of a short service, if you like, did some words and various things. And then we left, and then we went back to the church, where we did such a memorial service then. All the family spoke and did the readings and things. So, and then we all walked around to the local.
Were you happy with that?
Loved it.
Good.
I can't believe I've just come out with that. Loved it. It was my mum's funeral. I've literally just said loved it, which again, for some people may seem strange, but it was, we didn't know that we could do that. That we were.
It's an unusual way to do it. Usually it would start at the church and end at the crematorium, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And when I spoke to the church warden about doing that, because again, that's all I knew. So that was what I assumed we had to do. It was her that suggested it. And she said, because we were then going from the village church over to the crematorium and then back to the village pub. And so she said, well, it has been known to do it the other way round. And then you come to the church. And we preferred it because both my brother and I were going to speak at the funeral, as well as her brother. And none of us really liked the idea of trying to speak with Mum's coffin.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Literally
not easy.
Yeah. So what we found is in a way, a lot of the tears and happened when she was carried in, and obviously all the emotions that are there. And I said I didn't want the curtain coming round. You know, we wanted to be able to go up, and we've got
agree.
Cards and everything all over the coffin and the flowers. And again, rather than flowers being left outside, all the flowers were brought in. So there was all the flowers on the coffin. And they also were all taken into the church. So they didn't get left outside anywhere. They all went into the church. And we had a big projector, which was next to us at the back. And we'd actually organised the photos to run in line with the eulogy.
Yeah.
So we had it that there were photos constantly running of my mum while we were all doing the speeches. But when the eulogy came, we changed it. And there was a presentation that actually ran that matched with the events of his life, from photos to wedding to
a montage, we call it. We have that a lot in our side of things, where I love it when there's a slideshow, particularly with the when the remembrance music is being played, or reflection music, because it gives people something to focus on.
Yes.
You know, if they're just sitting there and everyone's thinking, oh, this is all, you know, they almost get trapped in their own thoughts, don't they? Whereas you've got a kind of a release for it. It makes the whole thing a lot easier for everybody.
I mean, in our circumstances, I wrote the eulogy and things, but I know that from what you say, you will often do that. So, you know, that can be really helpful for the family if they don't have somebody who wants or is able to do it.
Well, we do it. We have a section called the tribute, which is the eulogy, which is their life story effectively. And the other sections are based around the welcome. I have a section on called Thoughts on Life and Death.
Okay.
It's not called Thoughts on Life and After Death. And then I have obviously the committal, which is the hard part. And I quite agree with you about I never take the curtains across. I think the thing is, it's hard enough for people there without seeing some piece of fabric, basically shutting them away from their loved ones. I think that's awful. So, and I think it's nice when people are leaving to be able to say goodbye to the coffin as well. I think that's a bit of closure for them.
I agree. I wanted to be able to go up and
Yeah,
touch the coffin, and as I said,
yeah,
it was covered in flowers and pictures and cards.
yeah, yeah.
To do that. So no, I
And
agree.
that's really important with because it's usually at the time when the music that they've chosen as their recessional music's playing. So it needs to be an emotive point because people, you know, I think you and I discussed this before, but you see these, you know, they call them low cost funerals, but they're basically non-events. They're just, there's the ashes, you know, 1 minute they've died, next minute that someone knocks on a door with an urn.
Yeah.
And I think humanity needs a point to grieve because we need to manage a way to overcome our grief, and sweeping it under the carpet, if we've learned nothing, is not the best way to deal with grief.
I agree
So
with you, and I think you know that I have a lot of end of life conversations, and this is really trying to get people to talk about dying and planning for death, and knowing that it will come to us all. Hopefully, we've all got a long time before that, but we also need to sort of have some conversations around what would we want. And I know that I've already had that conversation with my dad, who wants a celebrant. He wants his service at the crematorium. He doesn't want a church service or memorial. Yeah, I did say I know somebody.
I did a friend's dad a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so they're always a bit. I mean, I know we want to talk about organising, but doing. I've done a few now services for people I know, and it's always because you know you have to create a wall as a professional, and you know this with your work. You can't become emotionally involved because you're paid to do your job, and your job is to present your services or service as best as possible. And you're not going to do that if you're upset. But when I'm looking at a row of people and I know everyone and they're all in tears, it does make it difficult, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. But again, I think people need to have these discussions. And when somebody dies, it gives you an opportunity really to excuse me, see what other people have for their funerals or end of life. So you can turn around and say, actually, yeah, I would like that, or I wouldn't. Which is how my dad came about saying he would like a celebrant, because he saw a service and he said, I liked that. You know, it was very relaxed. You know, there also was some humor in there, which I know for you is very important.
Very.
And he liked the fact that it was non-religious. He's not religious. And I think these are discussions that people really need to be having, don't they?
Yeah. I've got a friend at the moment, who rang me about 2 or 3 months ago, and they have a malignant brain tumor, aggressive brain tumor. She doesn't know how long she's got, but she rang me and said, I want to start planning, but firstly, I want you to talk me through the sort of things that I need to be thinking of, the instruction I need to give to other people. And I sort of said to her, I said, well, you know, I'm not being rude here or something, but you could have 2 years left. But she said, I don't know how much cognitive time I've got left. Do you know? And we've seen the awful situations of you know, people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and it's the long goodbye, isn't it? Their body's still there, but the person you knew has gone, and you're not able to get anything useful from them. Where she doesn't want that, so she's not an old lady by any stretch of the imagination, but she's it's a hard call, isn't it? We all want to avoid the subject, but the trouble is she knows this is my time. We're lucky. We all know we're going to die, but we don't know when. And I don't think any of us really want to know. But when you're presented with that diagnosis, it does change your mindset a bit, doesn't it? Must do.
You know, even that, I mean, with my mom, she had dementia, and I didn't think to find out before she died what she would have wanted. So we were guessing. And I look back and I'm very pleased with what we did. And I think it would have very much been fitting of my mom, but we didn't know completely that was definitively what she wanted. Whereas with my dad, again, he's fit, healthy, nothing wrong with him, and yet we know. I know songs, I know information, I now, you know, understand everything that they've got, if you like, that would need dealing with administratively afterwards. We've got some powers in place, we've got respect documents in place. We now have everything done for my dad based on what happened with my mum, and hence where planning ahead of time came from.
Yeah, it's good.
But I think, as you say, for you, if people want to book and have you as their celebrant, it doesn't matter really when we say that, as long as they make that clear to family.
They don't have to book me as a celebrant. And I did make this point to her. I said, look, you're not booking me. I'm just helping you here because I feel that's my job, and you've come to me for help. And there's not many people you can, you know, this service isn't available everywhere. You would have to know someone, or have to physically walk into a funeral director's probably. So I said, look, I'm just going to, you know, just ring me anytime you want to chat about things. I'll try and put your mind at rest with what happens, what we need to know, who we need to speak to, that kind of thing. I don't want to say, give it, oh, by the way, if you book early, it's 10%. I mean, it's not, I've never felt it's like that. I just want to create an open door for someone to walk into if they want to talk about it. And I'm sure that's the same with you as well. And you know, you just create that opportunity, you know, the open signs of the window. If you want to come in and chat, that's fine. If you don't, then tell me when.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if people did want to get hold of you, have a look at what you do, and, you know, look at the services, etc., that you offer, how do they find you?
They can find me on my website, which is www.non-religious-services.com. Also, you can get me on my email, colin570@btinternet.com, or on my mobile, which is 0771 285 2426.
Can you just do the mobile again? It broke.
I knew you were going to say that. It's 0771 285 2426.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for making the time to speak with me.
Lovely. I've enjoyed it.
Soon.
Thanks, Dale.
Bye.
Bye.